When we look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, I have been a huge proponent of this, which this is something that I obviously need to work on. When we look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, I like to say to them, I say this a lot, that this team does not look like the team of last year, which is true. The team of last year was obviously much different than the one this year. But I was so attached to the dominance that I've seen from the Eagles, and I've talked about this before, but the game on Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs kind of encapsulated everything that is the Philadelphia Eagles. I've been on this. The Eagles do not look the same. The Eagles do not look like the Eagles of last year. The Eagles don't look like the Eagles that obviously ran through their regular season, made it all the way to the Super Bowl. And that is true. This Eagles team is most definitely not the Eagles team of last year. But what I was doing is I was looking at that through a negative filter. I was looking at it as, well, no, this team is not as dominant as last year. And majority of their games, not all of them, but majority of the games have been a dogfight, which obviously comes when you're playing tougher opponents. The Eagles have a tougher schedule than they did last year. Now, this isn't something that I haven't said before, but again, when you're presented with new data, it's okay to change your opinion. It's okay to enhance your opinion. Monday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Kansas City Chiefs 21-17. Now, we can talk about the Marquez Valdes-Scantling drop, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We can talk about the multiple drops from the Kansas City Chiefs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We can talk about just the state of the Kansas City Chiefs, which we'll do in a little bit. But I'm starting this episode with reality. And what reality is the Philadelphia Eagles are 9-1. And almost all 9 of their wins looked like what it looked like on Monday Night Football. Almost all of their wins are hard fought. The Jalen Hurts makes big plays. Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown makes big plays. The running game comes into effect when it needs to. What we saw on Monday Night Football is a microcosm of everything that we've seen majority of this year, actually all of this year, from the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can look at this you can look at this two ways. You can look at this as, while yes, the Philadelphia Eagles arguably could have lost if a couple of balls were caught. Or you can look at it as, well, they won and they're 9-1. I was so ready to, not ready. Let me figure out how I'm gonna phrase this. I think the Eagles' year, in my opinion, of course, when we talk about the toughness of the opponent, I said that the Eagles' year was not going to start until after the bye week. That's when they had, of course, the Chiefs, and they had just tough opponents. They got the Cowboys coming up. But as we sit here today, the Philadelphia Eagles are 9-1. The Philadelphia Eagles make you have to reevaluate what you're seeing. Because, while yes, it looks like they've struggled majority of the year getting these wins, but on the flip side, they're getting these wins. Jalen Hurts is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. While no, this team does not look as dominant as it did a year ago. This team, in fact, this year might make this team better than the one a year ago. And let me explain that. There's a reason why when you see teams that blow through opponents in the regular season, in any sport, basketball, football, baseball, when you're a team that blow through your opponents, there are a lot of lessons that aren't able to be learned because you're not in close games. You're not in hard fought games. You're not in those games that you need to know how to maneuver and operate in close situations. When you're blowing out opponents or when you're just dominating opponents, that usually doesn't get that. Or as a team, you don't really learn that. And those are traits that need to be learned as a team. While yes, as an individual player, you probably know I have to make a bucket or I have to get a touchdown with 2 minutes left or with 10 seconds left or something like that. But as a team, that's something that you have to learn is tendencies. It's, okay, which best plays work for this situation? Those nuances get lost when you're dominating people. I go back to, damn, now that I'm really sitting here thinking about it, I do go back to the Golden State Warriors a lot. But the Golden State Warriors championship, or when they had Kevin Durant, the dynasty, one thing that was lost is in that you saw towards the end of the dynasty or the end of the Kevin Durant era of the dynasty is the Golden State Warriors were blowing people out. There was multiple fourth quarters that Steph Curry didn't play, that Kevin Durant didn't play because they just didn't need to. They're up 25. They're up 30 points going into the fourth. So you saw when they got to the Houston Rockets series in the Western Conference Finals and how the first few games they struggled mightily in the fourth quarter because they're not used to that. They have to learn on the fly at that point. Now, at the end of the day, talent supersedes it, and they obviously won a championship that year and overcame the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. But those lessons should have been learned in the regular season, but because they're blowing teams out as much, they're not learned until, sometimes it's too late. This Philadelphia Eagles team last year, they didn't really have too many close games. And most of the close games that they had, when we talk about last year, they either won or lost because another team did something dumb. This Philadelphia Eagles team is learning how to win multiple ways. We've seen DeAndre Swift carry the team. We've seen Jalen Hurts carry this team. We've seen A.J. Brown, carry this team. We've seen Dallas Goedert, who, of course, left the game on Monday Night Football and didn't come back. We've seen him be integral, mostly this year. So now this team is more battle-tested. So that when you get to the regular or postseason, if you possibly get to the Super Bowl, you know how to win multiple ways. You know how to blow people out. Because quiet as it's kept, blowing people out is a skill that you have to learn as well. Because a lot of people, they get comfortable with a 10-point lead. They get comfortable with a 14-point lead in the NFL. Well, 14-point lead is just 2 scores. So this Philadelphia Eagles team is learning how to win multiple ways. The defense is still great. Hassan Reddick is one of the best pass rushers in football. Dare I say, as I sit here today, and I have been uber critical of just the way that the Philadelphia Eagles have been winning. But I have failed to realize until now that maybe that the way they're winning is actually more of a benefit than a hindrance. Maybe the fact that they're in a lot of these close games and ultimately overcome and win is going to benefit them in the long run. This Philadelphia Eagles team is great. Yes, they have their issues. Every team in the NFL has their issues. But the Philadelphia Eagles, it seems like they're turning their issues into their strengths. And even with all the issues, I mean, you can look at the box score on Monday night. Jalen Hurts only 14 for 22, 150 yards, no passing touchdowns, 1 interception, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had a touchdown. Those numbers don't jump out at you. And that's how majority of these games. Now, yes, I also understand that Jalen Hurts is probably playing hurt. But even with all that, and a lot of the games that we see from the Philadelphia Eagles has that type of stat line for Jalen Hurts and the running game and the passing game. But they still ultimately win these games. And they're all, as we sit here today, they're 9-1. And quiet as it's kept, they have all the ingredients to get back to the Super Bowl. And if you ask me which team I trust more, if I trust this Philadelphia Eagles team or the one last year that actually made it, I would say this one, because this team has shown me that they can win multiple ways. If Jalen Hurts isn't having a good game, they can win multiple ways. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.